Hello, Dream Writers. My name is Kuiejor Garces Quijano. I always had a problem with the correct pronunciation of my name, so you can just call me Maria or Kuei. I would like to welcome you to the short course that I've exclusively created for Dreame. It's called The Basics of Writing a Novel. I am so excited to share with you all of the learnings and experiences that I have gathered for the past 8 years of my career as a book editor. To be clearly honest with you, I didn't just magically learn all of these things. It took some time for me to be where I am right now. These lessons that I'm about to share with are first-hand experiences, my first-hand experiences with the writers and the people that I've worked with in the publishing field. A celebrity, a novelist, a fictionist, an inspirational speaker, a professional writer, they all have a common denominator, and that is to tell a story. We need a lot of storytellers, especially in times like this. We need someone who can send a message, someone who can express those words that other people can say, someone who can offer an escape, and someone who can make a difference through words and stories. To give you a little bit more about my background, I have been in the publishing industry for the past 8 years, although my academic background doesn't say so much about what I do now because I'm a nursing graduate. I am a voracious reader, and writing has always been my passion. I attended a creative writing workshop in 2011 before I became an editorial assistant of a private publishing house here in Manila. And then 2 years after, I became their editor-in-chief. I'm currently working in ABS-CBN Books. It's the home of best-selling titles in the Philippines. Most of my work are included in the top-selling list of the country's largest bookstore. I think 3 to 6 out of 10 are my work. Some of the books that I've edited were serialized into a blockbuster film like Diary ng Pangit and Talkback and You're Dead. Reading has always been my passion. I like meeting new characters. I like exploring new world created by talented writers like you. I consider books as a time machine because it can bring me to different places and scenarios, places that I never thought existed. And writing is my magic wand, because with writing you can do just anything. You can be who you want to be. You hold power. You can change someone's life. You can touch someone's heart. But as we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. And as a writer, or as an aspiring writer, you have to know your responsibilities if you want to be a best-selling writer in the future. So, here are the things that you should know from me. Let's begin. By the end of this course, you'll learn about number 1, the basics. I'm sure you already know how to do these things, but I want to teach you how to make or how to do these things right, how to pick the right genre or how to choose the right genre, how to improve your mood and style, how to discover your own writing tone, how to pick the right cover and title, and most importantly, how to self-edit your work. Number 2, the external factor, also known as how to deal with editors. I'm sure you have different experiences with in working with a professional editor, so comment down below if you have any great or bad experiences in working with a book editor. Number 3, the qualities of a best-selling author. I'll be focusing on this since it's one of the major aspects or factors in the longevity of a writer's career. Talent is not enough in writing. No matter how talented you are, no matter how unique your writing tone is, no matter how mind-blowing your plot is. If you don't have the right attitude, you'll eventually get left behind. Writing a book is like giving birth to a baby. It has different stages. It has pain and labor, but it also comes with love, hope, and pure bliss. It can change a person's life. Same with writing. If I ask you now, what's the first step in writing a story? What would be your answer? Is it a title? Creating the plot or outline? Picking a genre? The truth is, every writer is different, and you probably has different rules and rituals in writing. But generally speaking, the first step in writing a story is having a foundation. This is your core. This is your why. This is when you have a one-on-one conference with your heart and mind. It's when the mind and heart are in sync to make something beautiful. So let them work together. Usually, your mind is talkative than your heart. Let the heart speak and then let your mind analyze them afterward. Your heart is responsible for the emotions that your book or story will give to the readers. The mind takes charge of how you write it in a way that they'll understand and relate to. My basis of a good story has always been this. If it makes me feel something, angry, sad, broken, giddy, or scared, then it's good. The technical errors can be easily fixed, but when a story is missing a soul, or emotion, or purpose and clarity, then it becomes a problem. So, my rule of thumb when I'm giving advice to my writers, when they don't know how to start writing their new book, or they're iffy to write something they're passionate about, is to go back to this first step. Try to answer these questions and listen to what your heart is saying right now. What is it that you really want to write? I'm sure you're carrying these concepts and scenarios in your head, but you couldn't put them into words. For example, was there a time when you're alone and enjoying a cup of coffee and you saw this middle-aged woman waiting silently on her table? Her food has been served already, but it remained untouched, as if she's waiting for someone who, at the time you're there, didn't show up. Maybe you wanted to write for moments like that. Whatever it is, you have to answer this question with full honesty. What is it that you really want to write? Number 2, why do you want to write it? Ask yourself, what do you want to achieve from doing this? And again, be very honest with your answer. Number 3, what's stopping you from writing it? Is it rejection, judgment, fear that it's not good enough, or fear that nobody will read it? Number 4, who are you writing it for? This will support your number 3. The first person that you have to convince when you're writing a story is yourself and not other people. You're writing because you have something to tell. You're not writing because you'll get 100,000 of readers in a snap. You're writing because you want to do it and because you're committed to it. Number 5, what makes it different? Say, you want to write a romance novel. Is there something new that your story can offer to the readers? By doing this, and by answering these questions, you're not only being totally honest with yourself, but you're also cultivating different emotions that will become evident once you start writing your story. And that's what we need, real emotions that will give your story a soul. Once you have a strong core, purpose, and foundation, and when you finally have the courage to be really honest with yourself and with what you want, it's easy to see things clearly and plan for your next move. You'll be motivated to start and finish writing your story. Not the possibility of getting huge followers, not to please others, not the deadline, although it's also an effective motivator. I am so guilty of this. But if you're to choose between writing with purpose and writing for superficial reasons, I think you already know which type of story will last longer in the heart and mind of your readers. Number 2, know your genre. The next step is to identify the genre of your story. It's important that you know its genre because it will serve as its identity and it will determine your target market. It's one of the first things that the readers will look for in case they're still not familiar with the title or content of your book. If you want to be found, and if you want to be found the right way, then choose the right genre, and the right target market will follow. Typically, a new writer will dive into what's in because it's easier to follow a trend. What sells the most, what's popular, what's trending. There's nothing wrong with following the trend and keeping up with what's currently selling. The only problem is, everything is fast-paced now, and if you can't keep up with the trend, by the time you finish writing the story, there will be a new hit, a new viral story, a new genre. So, I often advise my writers, especially if they're amateurs, to pick a genre that they're good at, they love to do, they're comfortable with, and there's a market for it. Not necessarily a one-time big-time market, but everlasting and clear. So do a quick market research, look for what readers are looking for, check the comments section, and ask around. You're probably thinking, whatever happened to going out of your comfort zone? Isn't that more fun? Trust me, there's plenty of time for that in the long run, when you already have enough experience. But if you're a new writer, you need to establish your style, your tone, and the identity of your work first. The leading genre under fiction are romance, erotica, sci-fi, crime thrillers, and fantasy. In the Philippines, historical fiction and romance fiction are the current top sellers. Now, picking the right genre can be tricky. When you're in doubt about which genre does your story falls into, go back to step 1. Who are you writing it for? Who's your target market? Young adult, millennials, introverts, broken-hearted, people who got cheated on, people who like solving crimes. There are also instances of a hybrid genre. This happens when there's more than one genre involved in the development of the story. For example, there's this love story about a millennial girl who traveled back in time and fell in love with a guy from the 1800s. So, it's a romantic fiction, and a historical fiction, and a sci-fi all in one. Hence the term hybrid. Now, how do you choose its genre? If I ask you now about the genre of this book, what would you say? You have to look for its core, look for its strength. Something in the story that the readers will hold on to, something that needs to be highlighted. The story I mentioned above is currently the #1 selling novel in the Philippines, and it's historical fiction. The 1800s setting is the core of that novel, and the author was an old soul. It sold pretty well, more than 100,000 copies sold, and a whopping 100 million reads online. Again, when in doubt, go back to step 1. Always remember your core. Even if you're already a seasoned writer and you think you're ready to try a new genre, don't forget your core. It's what will keep your writing career together. Step 3, finding your own tone, mood, and style. Writing tone is how readers hear the narrator or the point of view of a character while they're reading your story. Mood is how you make them feel while reading it and what kind of experience are you giving them. Style is how you weave each word to establish a scenario. These elements will set you apart from other writers like a fingerprint. The readers have to hear you talking in every page of your work. They have to care or hate your characters. They have to experience the setting. They have to be part of the world that you've created for them. One of the authors that I really like is Frederick Backman. All of his novels have a unique tone, mood, and style, and he never fails to bring me to the setting of the story. I wasn't merely reading a book, I was having an experience. I was in there. I was having a conversation with the characters. Did you notice how catchy the titles are and how symbolic the cover is? It was speaking directly to the readers. It's very pleasing and makes the readers curious whether or not they're a fan of him or not. So, how do you find your own writing voice and style? 3 things. Number 1, read. Read a lot. Reading is an essential part of finding your own natural writing voice and style. And by reading, I meant books written by other authors. It can widen your vocabulary, expose you to different emotions and style. It allows you to explore the work of others and make you realize what is it that makes you different from them, or what is it that will make you different from them. Next is to be authentic and don't be a copycat. You have to stay true to your core and to your readers. Originality is very important, as well as authenticity. That's what will make you remarkable in the publishing, in the literary field. Number 3, ask for opinions and keep practicing. Don't be scared of constructive criticisms, because you need a full dose of that in order for you to truly recognize your own tone, mood, and style. And of course, you have to keep writing in order for you to discover your own writing skills, writing style, and tone. Step 4, self-editing. I usually tell my writers that when writing a book, they should resist the urge to edit their work unless they're done writing it. Don't edit every paragraph that you just wrote. It will disrupt the flow of your creative juices, and most of the time it will affect your mood because you couldn't get a sentence right, and it's really frustrating. The tendency is you'll just give up and create a new one. In the end, you won't finish anything, so I tell them to keep writing first and edit it later. Now, let me emphasize the importance of self-editing your work. It's vital that you do this before you post it in a writing platform like Dreame, or before you submit it in a literary agent or a publisher. While I keep reiterating the importance of knowing the core of your work, the technical side of writing a story is also crucial. It can determine your professional career as a writer. Self-editing can be really painful and draining, trust me, I know, but it will make you a better writer. As a book producer and an editor, I appreciate it when I know that the writer took time to edit his own work before submitting it to me. It means that the writer spent some time to polish his manuscript before giving it to me. It means that the writer cares. It means that the writer loves his work because he did everything to make it the very best version before he decided to post it online or submit it to a literary agent or a publisher. When you're done writing your draft, what do you do next? How should you start editing your work? Should you just look for grammatical errors, missing punctuations, wrong spellings? Let me share you a few tips. 1. Read the whole manuscript again. Ask yourself these questions. Is the conflict clear? Were you able to establish it properly? Was it gripping or interesting? Or is it too common? Next, are there plot holes that I need to fix? Are there many inconsistencies? Is the story persuasive or gripping? Number 2, read each chapter and see if every one of them will make the readers hooked on the story. Each chapter should be helping one another until the reader reaches the solution or the very last page of your story. Read each paragraph and check the transition from one scene to another. This way, you'll be able to notice if there's or if there's something off or unrealistic in the flow of the story. Reward and rephrase. It's time to trim down those parts that are not necessary in the development of your story. If you feel like you're blabbering in some scenes, or there are paragraphs that don't make sense, find a way to make it more succinct or consider omitting those parts. Sometimes a lengthy sentence can be simplified in just one word. If you feel like something's lacking, try to elaborate. In the rewarding process, it does not mean using highfalutin words. It means choosing a word that will best describe a scene or an emotion that the character is going through. Last but not the least are the technical errors. It's hard to catch all of them, so you need a fresh set of eyes to look at your manuscript. Give yourself a break and then come back to it when you're ready. You can also ask your friends to look at it or a loved one. In self-editing, your goal is to answer every possible question a reader, an agent, a professional editor would ask and make a professional impression. And we're down to the final step, the title, cover, and synopsis. The title is your first opportunity to market your book, so it has to draw the readers in. Although there is a high chance that when you send your work to a publisher, the title will be changed. However, this should not stop you from giving your story the best title you could think of. Because the title sets the mood and essence of your story, it creates impression. It sends the readers a hint of what it's about. So, when choosing a title, remember the following. A great title has to be remarkable, something that reflects the personality of your work. Indelible, meaning hard to forget. Catchy, something that will quickly grab the attention of the readers. Timeless, so avoid titles that has the tendency to be outdated after a few years. Here's a sample of some of our best-selling titles. Great. Now, moving on to the cover and the synopsis. These are both essential in marketing your book. The cover is the visual representation and description of your work, but just because it's visual doesn't mean it only has to be pretty. It has to tell a story. It has to stay true to your core. I'll repeat it again. When in doubt, go back to our step 1. Remember your core. Remember your why. And remember why you're doing this. If you don't have an art director yet or a layout artist, you can keep this in mind if you're the one who's making your own cover. Choose a nice palette. Our goal is to catch the reader's attention, but we can't do it by using extra catchy colors. Pick something that blends well with your story and your personality. Pick a font that suits well to your story. If the story includes something related to musical, maybe you can use the Great Gatsby font. Or if it's a light read, then use a nice script. Just make sure that the texts are readable. It shouldn't overpower the title. They have to complement each other. Use symbolism. I like playing symbols on the cover. It's like a discrete mystery puzzle. My favorite part of reading a book is reaching the end and going back to the cover to see if there's anything significant on it. I like having an aha moment, like, oh, that's why the cover has 3 roses and one of them is dry, because one of the characters died. Be a little meticulous. Check the margins and spacing. Make sure they're aligned. Impressions matter. Experiment and do quick research. My go-to place when I'm running out of creative juices is Pinterest and the bookstore. This was when everything was still normal and we could still go out to shop for books. There are lots and lots of great artworks and cover in there. Just a little reminder. Appreciate them, but don't steal them. Trust me, you'll have a problem if you try to copy someone's work. Are we clear on that? Now let's go to creating the gist of your story. Writing a synopsis can be quite hard and impossible at first. Imagine you have to trim down a full manuscript of around 100,000 words and make it less than 500 words. But you can do this. You'll be amazed at how you can keep your focus while writing the gist of your story. The synopsis will give the readers an overview of your story. It's the first thing they read, and if they find it intriguing or relatable enough, there is a high chance that they'll read your work. And in some cases, aside from publishers, synopsis can also attract film producers. Part 2, the external factor. I will touch the external factors of writing a best-selling novel because it usually involves marketing, sales, and building a community. Maybe we can talk about that next time, but for today, I'll talk about working with a professional editor. In my 8 years of experience, I was given the opportunity to work with different kinds of writers. Writers who are scared of editors because they're afraid of what they would say about their work. Writers who don't listen to their editors because they are confident that their manuscript is ready and it's flawless and it doesn't need any revision at all. But no matter how flawless a manuscript may seem to be, a writer still needs an editor, especially writers who are just starting out. For example, one day I chanced upon a TV series producer that's holding a self-published book. I knew that book and I heard it was selling good. When I asked the producer if they'll serialize it in a TV series, the producer said no. The reason? It was poorly written and edited. There was no structure at all, no strong characterization. It was hard to read because of the erratic flow and so many typographical errors. The conflict was also broad. I said, but if the sales were good, why not push through with the TV series adaptation? The producer shook his head and said, they need structure, clear, gripping, and persuasive structure. So that writer missed his chance to have a TV series adaptation of his work because I think his story wasn't ready yet. The editor will help you shape your manuscript and make it more appealing for your target market. So try to listen to them. We're not always nice, but we know what's best for your story. You don't have to like your editor, but you have to believe in them because they have the experience, they know the business, and they know exactly how to widen your readership and not only target those who are already following you or people who already know you. The editor usually checks the viability and relatability of a story and see if it has potential. As a writer, it's a must that you listen to your editor. I really advise this. In editing a story, I have this principle. If it doesn't bother the writer, then there must be something wrong. So then don't take the comments personally. An editor's comments are not always nice because they see something in your manuscript that you don't. Remember, you both have a common goal: to shape and mold your story the best way possible. So set aside your personal emotions this time and start thinking about your readers. There is always something that can be improved in a manuscript. So my advice is, if it hurts, that's okay, because that means you're learning something new. Readability matters. So go. Part 3: 7 Qualities of a Best-Selling Author. Attitude makes a difference. Like I said earlier, I would like to focus on this because this is one of the most common issues that I deal with when I'm handling writers. It can determine the longevity of a writer's career. No matter how talented you are, no matter how unique your plot is, no matter how mind-blowing your concept is, if you don't have the right attitude, you'll eventually get left behind. Trust me when I say, talent is not enough to make a stable writing career. Be flexible. These writers are always willing to grow and learn. They are not fixed with what they know. They welcome suggestions and comments, both the good and bad, and then they try to look at them from a new perspective. These writers can adapt to changes and can face challenges. They learn from their mistakes and rise up from countless rejection. They know that life is an experiment and there's always a room for growth. I highly recommend seeking an editor's advice when you're writing a story. If you can afford one, then there's a lot of available articles online that you can study. Now, I want you to remember to set aside BEA when you're writing a story. It stands for being emotional, expectations, and attachment. I know I've mentioned the importance of emotions in writing a book earlier, but those emotions should be found in your story and not in your decisions. Don't be emotional when you're making a creative move. Don't do it because you wanted to seek vengeance. Don't do it because you want to bring someone down. Don't do it because you think you know better. Don't base your decision on your emotions. Don't take everything personally. Don't do it just to prove a point. Your emotions can cloud your ability to see things clearly and make a fair judgment. When you're about to make a creative move, analyze it with a clear mind and purpose in your heart. You're doing this because this is what you want. You're doing this because you want to grow. You're doing this because you want to inspire. You're doing this because you love your readers and you trust that it's the kind of story that they want and that will make them happy. You're doing this because you are confident that you are ready to try a new genre. Again, when in doubt, go back to step 1. Remember your core and remember your why. Manage your expectations. When things don't go according to your plan, don't get demotivated. Take it as a sign that you're one step closer to getting what you really want to achieve. There are no mistakes here, just learnings. Attachment. I'd like to tell you a story. There's this writer who insisted to use the original cover that she made for her story despite getting an editorial advice to improve it. She said it has sentimental value for her and she really wants to use it. To make a long story short, we respected her request. She got what she wanted, but since the cover was not catchy enough and it didn't stand out, it didn't sell well. In cases like this, the writer was not thinking about the readers but herself. The cover might have a sentimental value for you, but the question is, do the readers know it? Does it matter to them? Does it matter to the story? Is it connected to the core of your... Cultivate good habits. Habit is the root of success. These are writers who have already formed a habit of writing regardless of time, place, and situation. Once an idea flashes into their minds, they write it down. But most of us has this other habit of, I'll remember it later, I'll write it down later. But we never really do. We often forget it. So my advice is, when you think of a concept, write it down on your phone or a piece of paper. Just make sure you don't lose it. Okay, so some writers have a habit of writing 1,000 words per day. It trains their creative mind to come up with something regardless of how they feel at that moment. They don't just wait for rain or heartbreak or an inspiration to happen. They make one. Their source of motivation doesn't come from circumstances that they can't control. Whether it rains or not, they will write. You need to keep practicing to be a good writer. Be committed. My friends and family know this. Writing was my first love, but I wasn't so committed to it. I was always thinking that there's another time for me to start writing the book that I want to publish. Guess what? It's been years since I said that, and I've never really written anything at all. So don't do that. Writing a story needs your full commitment, not only the writing process, but all throughout your writing journey. You need to be committed on your purpose, your why. I know I'm repetitive already, but I want you to remember it. You need to be committed on your deadlines. When you say you'll do something in a specific time, do it. No excuses. Don't make writer's block an alibi. Later, before I end this course, I will teach you a technique that can defy a writer's block. And most of all, you have to be committed and loving your own work. It's your creation. So you must be willing to do anything to make it the best. Disciplined. Writing is a form of art. Hence, I consider writers as artists. And while some artworks can really take time to create, in writing, you have to practice the discipline of creating a specific timeline. Otherwise, you'll just be complacent and you won't be able to finish anything. This will prevent procrastination in the future and a half-baked story. So, for the sake of finishing a story, if you don't have a specific timeline, then there's a tendency that you'll rush writing it just to meet your deadline. Make a schedule and stick to it. I know a writer guru who sees to it that when the clock strikes at 9 o'clock in the morning, he'll write a few pages of his novel. And before he knows it, he's done writing his new book. Practice the discipline of building healthy relationships with your readers, other co-writers, and content creators as well. Expand your network. Talk and listen to them. Their opinion matters, and as the old saying goes, experience is still the best teacher. Motivated. More than fame, money, and popularity, your motivation should come from yourself. It should be internal. Have the eagerness to make a difference, to touch someone's life, and to take pride at your work. Without this internal motivation, a writer is bound to fail. Be an A player. Find the right team and work well with them because success is a team sport. And by team, it doesn't only pertain to your editor, proofreader, layout artist, art director, agent, or publisher. Your team includes your supporters and anyone who enjoys your work so much. These people are the ones who are giving your story its very essence, to be read, to be understood, to have a meaning. An A-player writer leads by example. They're the kind of writer who inspires other writers to keep doing what they love most. Passionate. For me, personally, this is the most important quality that a writer should have. The whole writing process is not a walk in the park. And if you're not passionate enough with what you're doing, it's easy to just set it aside and start a new hobby. Especially when you're just a starting out writer and you feel like no one is reading your work, like no one is interested. It's easy to get demotivated. But if this is really something that you love to do, then you won't be easily shaken by those. When writing is your passion, you're not only offering them your work, you're offering them your heart. And that's why I value hard work more than passion. Because I feel like hard work has a timeline, and at some point, when you're really tired, you'll have to stop eventually and say, I did what I could. Passion is different. It's your life, it's your breath. So you can't just stop because this is one thing that you love to do. And that's it. Remember, more than writing a story, you have to know why you're doing it in the first place. So whenever you're confused or scared or demotivated to finish writing something that you're really passionate about, always go back to our step one. Know your core and remember your why. Because when you know exactly why you're doing it, when you have a clear goal in mind, everything will fall into place. The money and fame will follow if only you'll invest your time, effort, and attention to it, and if you trust the right people. Before I end this course, I have prepared 3 exercises for you. One of them will help you defy writer's block. So whenever your creative juices are not in the mood to write a chapter or to finish writing your novel, try the clustering technique. It really works. So I hope you learned something from me, and I look forward to reading your works in Dreame. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.